Good guy, that Mike Garafolo. Mike Garafolo for the final time in 2024, joining us for his weekly segment and taking a little time away from building Barbie dream houses to talk about the National Football League. Mike, we're going to begin with Saquon Barkley. What an incredible season, just 101 yards away from passing Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record of 2,105 yards. He's got one game remaining. However, the Eagles are playing a meaningless game against the Giants. So the question is, will Nick Sirianni actually play him and allow him to go chase that record?
I've been told all along that the most important things to Saquon Barkley are team-related, especially having been with the Giants and not experiencing these things. In fact, after Sunday's game, he said, "It's a hat and T-shirt game. I didn't even know those existed." So still taking little jabs at the Giants everywhere along the way that he can, while also celebrating what he's done with the Eagles. So to go out there and chase a number like 101, I mean, if it was 40, it's like, well, he could have that by middle of the first quarter. If it's 101, you're talking about him potentially, and I know he's had some games where he's had that in the first quarter alone, but that's a big number to get against a Giants team, by the way, that might put 11 players in the box to stop him from getting the record against them. My understanding is they're still talking this through. Tuesday's their big game planning day, so they'll have their conversations, their final conversations then. It sounds like they're leaning more toward resting him, so Eric Dickerson sleep comfortably tonight knowing that your record appears to be safe. No final decisions made. I just hearing Saquon on Sunday, knowing that he's on board with the best decision for the team, I still think he winds up sitting this week, but we'll see.
Okay, let's talk about those Giants, Mike, because they got their first home win of this season over the weekend over the Colts, and that snapped a franchise record 10-game losing streak at home. Now, I also want to mention one other thing. This means New York no longer has control of that number 1 overall pick. This was the one thing that Giants fans could at least hold on to. Now they don't even have control of that because they won at home. They can't even tank correctly. How hot are the seats under the GM Joe Schoen and the coach Brian Daboll right now?
Malik Neighbors running towards the end zone and being booed by the home crowd as he's about to score a touchdown. Just tells you everything you need to know about that. I got a text from my Giants buddy after the game that said the Giants are embarrassing after they just won a game. Like, that's his mentality for how they screwed this up in his mind. Brian Daboll, really, I don't think he cared, because if they had lost that game and they'd lost all the way out, I think he realizes he may have been fired, and he still may at this point. I don't see both guys getting fired. Joe Schoen has been allowed to scout these quarterbacks with his personnel staff the last couple of weeks. The Giants have sent him on private planes and to games and practices. He was even there because Shedeur Sanders, it would almost be sort of a recruiting trip, because Deion's made it clear that there are some teams he didn't want him to go to. So it's almost like we got to go scout him, but also kind of grease the wheels a little bit. So I think Joe Schoen winds up in place. The question for me is what happens with Brian Daboll. We shall see. I would say winning the game helped his cause, because it sounded like there was a lot of relief in the Giants building to be back on the winning side of things, even if it did screw up their draft position.
Okay, well, they did eliminate the Colts from postseason contention. That is 4 years out of the playoffs for the Indianapolis Colts. The question is, their owner, Jim Irsay, we know he's a wild card. He can do a lot of things off the cuff. Is there a chance he just clears house off season in Indianapolis?
There's certainly a chance, and knowing how disappointed he's been with results in recent years, to lose to a team like the Giants in that spot where you've got to try to win for your own playoff life while they're really not trying to lose, but we just talked about their scenario. And with Anthony Richardson struggling so much, I mean, this is the guy who, when you draft a player a lot of times, Jay, and you're not the number 1 overall pick, and you say, no, this is the guy we wanted all along. That's what the Colts did with Anthony Richardson, even released some draft room videos to show that we were locked in on Richardson the whole time. It's like, well, that's great. You're expressing that in the moment. You're giving the guy confidence and all that stuff. But when it doesn't work out, then you look back and say, well, if this is the guy you wanted all along, what does that say about your evaluation of him? So I'm looking at general manager Chris Ballard. Shane Steichen and his coaching staff, I like Shane a lot. I think the Eagles, when they lost him to Indianapolis, certainly felt the pain of losing such a great offensive mind. So I think he's got a future, certainly as an offensive coordinator, ahead of him if he does not keep his head coaching job right now. But I would say everything's on the table with the Colts because that team did not give a spirited effort in that spot on Sunday.
New York Jets haven't really given a spirited effort all season, Mike, and they'll close out a very disappointing season Sunday at home against the Dolphins. And now it appears that interviews are about to begin for a new New York Jets head coach. Any insight into exactly what the Jets are looking for?
Well, they're going to interview Ron Rivera, as we reported for NFL Network earlier in the day, and that's going to kickstart their head coaching search. They've already started their general manager search, and we've seen a lot of guys with previous experience be interviewed there. Ron Rivera certainly has experience as a head coach twice. So I think that's going to be an emphasis on both sides of this one, Jay, but it doesn't mean that there's going to have to be experience in both spots. I would say at least one is going to have some previous experience. But when it comes to the head coach, I would put in your mind a guy that can handle the New York market. So I think there are some candidates that are going to be hot candidates that aren't necessarily going to be top candidates with the Jets. I think Aaron Glenn, who has been with the organization as a player before, I think he's got the chops. And I know that there's got a lot of respect inside that building for him. Would not be surprised if he's one of the leading candidates there. Rivera's been through a bunch. He certainly could handle it as well.
On Sunday, you covered a real cool moment. Cowboys-Eagles game for the NFL Network. A.J. Brown, the football for jersey swap with a fan at the end of the game. Take us through this moment. It went viral, Mike, and you were a part of it.
Yeah, well, so that goes back a couple of days because A.J. Brown was in the locker room on Thursday when I was there, and he looks up, he says, "Oh, I don't usually see you here." And I go, "That's great. So you're going to talk to the media today?" He goes, No, my scheduled day is tomorrow." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to be here tomorrow." He says, "Well, I'll tell you what, meet me after the game on the field." And then he said to me, "I got to earn that interview with you guys for NFL Network." I said, "I'm sure you will." So after the game, we got A.J. Brown because I had a previously scheduled appointment, Jay, but that put me in perfect position. Position A, to follow him the whole way, all the way to the end zone, to make that jersey swap, a man of his word. He actually asked the young man, "What's your name?" so he could personalize the jersey for the young man whose name was Patrick. And that moment where he kind of gives him the bicep, the fan does, and then he says, "Hey, I appreciate it. You saw the respect and admiration both ways on that one. I just love the reaction from A.J. Brown. Realizing it was similar to earlier in the year when Saquon Barkley gave away a football that he wanted to have as well. So I love that the fans are giving it back and getting stuff in exchange. Good job, A.J. Brown.
It was an amazing moment, and you were a part of it, Mike. I love that for you. Now, we're done for this week, but next week it could get real heavy for us, right? Because you're going to join us on Black Monday. Are you expecting it to be pretty busy, Mike?
I don't think it'll be as busy as some other years. We might wind up with 5, 6 openings. And we already have, 3 already that we have because of the decisions that are made in season. So, yeah, that's right. Chicago, New Orleans, and the Jets. So I think it'll be relatively quiet, but we're definitely going to see some action on this one, Jay.
All right, and we're looking forward to having Mike on to talk about potential coaching hirings and firings on Black Monday. That'll be the next time we see Mike. For now, Mike, great to have you on the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Happy New Year, Jay, and everybody there.